be an ag pilot. So we'll just kind of roll through the whole situation here. My name is Beverly Berry. I am the owner of Eagle Vistas Ag Pilot Training in out of Williston, Florida, and we've been in business for 18 years. There's the table of contents. I'm just pretty much going to skip that, just go to the meat of it. So, my late husband and I founded this flight school, specialized flight school, in 2007. My late husband had been a third generation pilot, and he has received the FAA Wright Brothers Master Pilot Award and the Charles Taylor Master Mechanic Award. He's been in ag aviation for over 40 years, and he had worked for an air tractor dealership here in Florida. And as part of his job, he would interview pilots for positions. And he was concerned about the level of training that they were receiving. And he said, I think I can do better. So we started doing one at a time here and there. And he said, this is rewarding. I want to do this. So he at that point stopped his major job as an ag pilot, and we started the school. I had a background in banking, financial services representative, specializing in businesses. And so we kind of just melded everything together to start things up. Um, we have done a number of different things in the course of the establishing the school. The most important one is establishing minimum flight training standards for ag pilots. Neither FAA nor National Association, National Agriculture Aviation Association have minimum flight training standards. Our National Association has a certification standard that is more like a safety training kind of thing. Most of the students, the pilots are already flying ag when they start that process. So I'll go to that a little further later, but let's just, what is the need for ag pilots? The video that Laura had on before was a very good video of showing, what was actually being done, and he talked about the aging population of ag pilots. So, it takes, a certain amount of experience to get into this position. And so we are in the process of needing to replace the pilots that are getting older. Um, uh, Corporate farms may choose to have their own airplanes. That's a possibility for an ag pilot job. And emerging agriculture markets in foreign countries around the world. I got a very early phone call this week from Tanzania, and they have just recently bought a brand new turbine ag plane, and wanted to properly train some of their pilots. So we're discussing that. Fire suppression, all y'all have to do is just watch the news, and you see that that's a huge, huge situation that a lot of the pilots, usually they transition from an ag pilot, and there's actually minimums of a few hundred hours to be an ag pilot to be in order to go to the fire suppression. Usually that in our side, we talk about planes using single engine air tanker planes, and the planes on floats where they can go down to a lake and scoop up the water. And they're usually like the first on the scene. So you'll see that all across the United States. We've worked with pilots all across the world wanting to also get the proper training to transition to this. We worked with pilots from Cyprus, adding that to their skills. So what licenses do you need to be an ag pilot? Currently, this is how it goes. If you're going to work for compensation or hire, you'll need a commercial pilot certificate, license, however you want to call it. Now, at this point, a limited commercial pilot is all that's required for an ag pilot. When they start looking into the position on the fire side, the single engine air tanker, they are requiring an instrument rating for that. Best those planes are being equipped with some instruments that look a whole lot like instruments for instrument flying. The best way I could uh, discuss that is when you get in a bunch of smoke, you want to know which way's up. So we have some students that are starting early with their instrument rating as well for all the benefits that it can give them. Um, we've actually worked with a number of farmers that had enough acres to buy a ag plane and it to make sense for them. And technically speaking, they don't even have to have a commercial pilot license if they're only spraying their own farms. Most of the ones that we have worked with, once they have done maybe a season or so of their own farm, their neighbors see what they're doing and they said, "Well, we want you to do ours too." So that they usually get a commercial pilot certificate as well. Um, each state, you have to pass a state aerial pesticide license exam, and in most cases, a core pesticide license exam as well. Many of the states also require some specific exams. There, it might be row crop, it might be public health if you're going to spray mosquitoes that you'll have to pass exams. Some have pests and some have crop identification. So those are delivered by the state associations. Um, so our minimum flight training standards were established to ensure a minimum standard of proficiency, similar to what you have as private pilot and commercial pilot. Um, FAA has established those minimum standards for private and commercial. They have not established it for aerial application. And we have spoken, interacted several times over the years with FAA, and they just are not quite ready to adopt that flight training standard yet. Which it's always interesting to me when I get students from other countries and their countries' aviation divisions like FAA have established minimum standards, and they come in and say, I need to have X number of hours of ag aviation training. And so we help them to meet those minimums so that they can go back to their country and fly. Some of the foreign countries have an actual add-on to their license that says agriculture aviation. So that's kind of how it goes. Um, we feel strongly that the minimum flight training standards that we established have helped to save pilots. We figure our graduates over the years have been maybe 270 of those, and it's pretty much can be documented by insurance and NTSB records and things like that, that it has helped our students to establish a good, firm foundation and be safe, have less accidents. Um, these are some of the things that we think are important to go into the training for an ag pilot. Tailwheel proficiency. Now, I will often speak to pilots who may have some tailwheel time, and many times we have to drill down or talk a little bit further about that because handful of hours or a bunch of hours in a small tailwheel airplane may not translate over to the skill that is needed for the large ag planes that are tailwheel, particularly when you head up to the turbines. They're heavier, and there are some additional skills that we can teach for that. One of our associates that has flown the heavy ag planes, the Air Tractor 802 for many years, has told us to continue with our advanced tailwheel proficiency because he says with a plane that size, and if it's loaded up and heavy, he said every landing has to be perfect. You need to be able to put that airplane exactly where it needs to go. Ag pilots may work off of unimproved strips, which may also give them additional challenges. So again, we teach an advanced tailwheel proficiency. We do an introduction to low-level flying because that's not the area that most pilots have had training in. There can be some pilots that, many very experienced pilots that that sight picture is just it bothers them. Let's think, airline pilots, they've not been flying, close to the ground. So that might not be comfortable for them. So we do it in an introduction to the low level. Gradually, we move down to the field, levels that we'll spray in. Okay. Safe ag turns. I'm going to include in that we also add in upset spin recovery as it relates to ag at the beginning of our ag course, because at the level that the ag pilots fly, at the level that they may be making turns, the pilot needs to know where his edges are, what's a safe turn, what does it do when there are an aggressive turn at a certain height that there might not be a chance for recovery. So proper training is paramount in that area. And that is an area that we have lost pilots over the years. So we always are looking for additional training in that regard. Proper field surveys, that kind of covers surveying where you're going to be spraying. You're looking for all kinds of things. You're looking for, are there any wires that may impede your flying there? And when you start talking about wires, the time of day, the light, this where the sun is, can affect the wires. And so a pilot may do multiple surveys in that area just to make sure that he didn't miss something. That you can, at a certain perspective, not even see the wires. Our National Association, National Agriculture Aviation Association, has also worked very hard to get some changes for the posting of the towers and things like that that would help ag pilots and regular pilots as well be safe to see those towers. The rules had been if it wasn't over 200 feet, nothing was marked. And so, and they could be put up like overnight. So our National Association is working very hard at having that stuff added to all the maps and sectionals that we use. Learning the proper swathing techniques or how to get down low and make your turns and come back around and do the next spraying, that's very important. We also spend a lot of time practicing emergency procedures, just like firemen practice for emergencies, just so that you have that in your tool bag. Oh, I've practiced that before. Things like landing with a load. Now, what that means is think about it. The ag plane has been loaded up to go out and spray. Okay, so it is heavier than normal. It's taking off heavier than normal. And if maybe it's an engine issue or something like that, or a pilot issue or whatever, he may attempt to land with his load, and that is save the load and go back to his strip, his landing strip, and attempt to land. There are a lot of factors that have to be considered on that being successful and not creating another emergency on its part. So those are things that we practice. We also practice emergency jettisons, and that is where the plane is loaded and the pilot makes the decision that if I'm going to be able to land or take care of this emergency, I must get rid of the load immediately. So he'll pull the handle and the whole load will drop. And that's a physics lesson. What happens to that airplane when you drop all that weight? What do you have to do to counteract that and be safe? So we do practices on that. In the ag world, there are also GPS for mapping of the shows where you sprayed. Okay. There's a lot of information that can be obtained from these maps, and there's a lot of new things that are happening in this area as well. Part of flow control, think about topography and, one side needs more spray than the other and that kind of thing. So we that's part of their training that will take care of them. Personal protection, that is, what do you need to know about the chemicals that you're spraying? Okay. What is needed to work around them? Gloves, that kind of thing. Suits to protect yourself. Those. So we learn a lot from the label on the chemicals or the fertilizer or whatever we're spraying will tell you what personal protection is required to work around those. So we teach about the labels and the responsibilities that the pilot has to work with them. So someone may come and say, I want to start my own business, my own aerial application business. How do I start and what does that fall under? So FAA has a Part 137 that covers aerial application and will give certain abilities to aerial applicators permission to go below that 500 feet threshold that all rest of the pilots, know by heart, that you can't get below 500. Well, when we are spraying, obviously that's required, and so you have to learn, what you are allowed to do and what you can't do. So we can help with the application process. There is both a private Part 137 operation that is just for the farmers spraying their own fields, and then commercial means for compensation or hire. And so we can help on that regard. How to get a job as an ag pilot? You'll hear in our world many times the way to start is with a ground position, the loader position. And it's a very important position because you're learning about the whole process from ground up. You're learning about the chemicals and how to do proper personal protection. Some states have an exam state loaders. I don't know exactly what they call them. Loaders position test exam. I know one of our mechanics went to Iowa and had to take a test in order to be a ground loader. Um, so those are ways to get started in the business, get yourself established in the ground positions. And there are positions working for fixed wing ag operators and helicopter ag operators. And I have referred students to many of those positions, and many of those operators will call us looking for our students for those positions to be filled. Entry level pilot positions for an ag pilot. We get calls from operators to help fill those. Many times when we think of the entry level positions, we're thinking of the smaller ag planes, which are piston planes, Cessna 188, Ag Truck, Ag Wagon, and Husky. Pawnee fit in those categories. Ag Cats, some of them are still radial, and some of them are also now turbine. Um, so those are kind of the start, and then we feel that membership in our national association, National Agriculture Aviation Association, is a good way to network and meet more people and learn more about our industry. We have an annual convention. This year it's in Reno in November. There are state associations, and those are, a little smaller version of the conventions. I know Laura had mentioned to me that she's gone to the one in her area that covers 3 states. Um, and there's usually required what we call a pass program, educational opportunities for the pilots. And again, you're meeting operators and pilots to learn more about the business and make contacts for jobs. So this just quick rundown on, aircraft available, how to get into aerial application. So we've got piston fixed wing aircraft, radial fixed wing aircraft, turbine fixed wing aircraft, piston helicopter, and turbine helicopter. Like the fella in the video that was earlier, he's talking about the UAS and drones and their position in aerial application. We are seeing more and more of that. It does take the 107 pilot certificate, and there is a Part 137 for uh, UAS and drones for aerial application. So there is a certain amount of education that is needed and required. And the feeling is there will be a place for those uh, operators of the UASs and drones. Uh, it will take a while for it to, replace the airplanes. Some of the largest turbine ag planes, the 802s, I mean, they're massive. So to think about how many drones it would take to do the spraying that they're capable of, it's almost, we're just not there yet, anywhere to imagine it yet. So there's a lot of new technology available, and I've only just barely touched on it here. Flow control for ground speed in even application. You can turn one side off or reduce the nozzles, and that kind of thing. Um, the mapping and download for documentation and billing. Some of the GPSs, they're literally, flying computers. So when the job is done, they can say, done and send it back to the office, and the office can bill for the job even before the pilots has, finished land and landed. So there's a lot of, surveying that can be done under determining areas that need more treatment. Let's say if you're talking about pests or bugs, that kind of thing. And then, of course, we touched on the UAVs. I'd like to, point you out to our trade magazine, Ag Air Update. You can search them online and see some of their magazines each month. They will give you lots of information about our industry and, just show some of the new things that are coming. Um, so I'm often asked by pilots that fly around the country about working with a off sharing airport space with the ag planes. Um, Many times at the uncontrolled airports, you will see some of the ag planes. And so we just suggest that you keep a normal traffic pattern and keep your normal radio calls up. The ag pilots are professionals and will work with you. They may not be as uh, do as many radio calls as we'd like, but they are there. They are there listening, and so please feel free to, contact them and know what they're doing. Be patient with them at this, when they're in their busy season, because they're working usually from daylight to dark to get their work done. And so there's that.